Hello and welcome to EPLW, your weekly debrief of the English Premier League. And what a week it's been! On this show, we're going to take a look back through the weekend's matches, including what turned out to be Jose's last game in charge of Spurs on Friday night. Ros will give us some of his expert knowledge on the Fantasy Premier League. And of course, we will be talking European Super League. What the hell is going on there? In the midst of all that, we'll try and preview the Liverpool-Leeds game as well. As always, we want to know what you think, so get involved, throw your comments into the ring for us to discuss. And be sure to follow us on Twitter at EPLW Pod. Alongside me today, I've got regulars Ros and Mus and special guest Liverpool fan Matt. How are we doing, lads, on this historic day of football? Why don't you all introduce yourselves and tell me one thing, just one, that you're looking forward to talking about on today's episode. Mus, why don't you kick us off?
Great. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mus. I'm a Arsenal season ticket holder, or I was 24 hours ago, and then I burnt it. Just kidding. But yeah, I'm looking forward to. There's been a lot going on. I'm looking forward to trying to remember all the games that happened.
Okay. Cheers, Mus. And Ros?
Yeah, how's it going, mate? Ros, Millwall season ticket holder. Yeah, can't wait to get onto this Super League chat. I'm a bit annoyed we weren't invited as one of the 6 English clubs, to be honest.
And Matt, thanks for joining us on this very much unique episode of EPLW, slightly later scheduled than usual for personal reasons. But Matt, introduce yourself.
No worries. Thanks for having me on. Good evening, everyone. I'm Matt, as you probably can tell, Liverpool supporter. I think the first one possibly on this podcast. I'm looking forward to getting stuck into the Leeds Liverpool fixture, so try and put aside the mare that is European Super League and focus on two teams that both styles suit each other. So looking forward to that.
Okay, great. Well, let's get going, shall we? We'll go on in reverse chronological order. So we'll start with Burnley's trip to Old Trafford yesterday afternoon. It finished 3-1 to Man United. Greenwood doing very well recently, got a couple of the goals. And yeah, I mean, did you see this one, Mus?
Yeah, I did. I think you're right to pick out Greenwood. He's now, I think, the top scoring teenager in the history of the Premier League, with, I think, at least 3 or 4 more than Michael Owen's record. And he's
Good stat.
B20. Yeah, thanks. Stars you mean to go on.
Status means go on.
Yeah, no, he's not going to be 20 until another 6 months, I think. So, you know, he's had a stop-start season, but he's continuing to show great promise. I think 2 funny moments to pick out from the game. There was that Paul Pogba incident, which I sent you guys the video on the WhatsApp earlier, but he tried to do a rainbow flick in the corner over one of the Burnley defenders. It didn't quite go to plan, and then the ball came back to him, and then he got taken out by Matt Lowton, and then John Moss, in rather colourful language, told him to stop messing around. Hilarious. And then Rashford, who seems to love a nutmeg, and he's now the top nutmegging player across the top 5 leagues in Europe, on 18 nutmegs. As a bit of a nutmeg connoisseur myself, I quite like that stat. Although second place is Neymar on 12, but he's played 10 fewer games.
Is that this season?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, where do you find these stats, or is this a personal tally you keep? You watch every single game.
Believe it or not, there are other nutmeg aficionados out there who keep tally.
Fair play. Okay, yeah, Ros, anything to add from the United Burnley game?
I mean, must pick 2 funny moments. I'd like to add a third one, which was the Burnley goal. Another day, another Harry Maguire mistake. I want someone to prove me wrong. But every game I watch Harry Maguire in a Man United shirt, he does something that's like embarrassing.
I mean, mate, he looks like a spy. He looks
dominated by Tarkowski.
He looks
it's what he's meant to be good at. He's meant to be a beast in the air. Tarkowski was just like shocking.
Yeah, Harry Maguire looking like a spider without a web, defending, you know, as usual.
Or a footballer without any natural defending ability.
Yeah, true, but you know that's another discussion for another time. I mean, we've waxed enough about Harry Maguire, haven't we? Matt, as a Liverpool fan, what's it like to see Man United doing so well this season?
Yeah, it's worrying, isn't it? I think it's surprising they built up this resilience where they just don't seem like they're going to lose, and their goals aren't a problem for them at all. Whereas obviously for us, we can't score anything at the moment. So it's. I mean, I enjoyed it at the start of the season when they got thumped 6-1 by Tottenham, I believe, and it was kind of Ole was on his way out, and he's obviously I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but he sorted the defence out, and particularly with Fernandes as well. Kind of carrying him through the mid-season, and now it's kind of shifted to Pogba. But yeah, I think if they sign well in the summer, they're right up there with City again, and hopefully us, and so yeah,
And
slightly
and the rest of the European elite, yeah.
yeah, slightly worrying, but then again, this season's been a bit of a blip, so it's nothing I'm too worried about. Yeah.
It's been a strange one all round, hasn't it, this season? Okay, let's move on then from Man United, and we will talk Arsenal, who rescued a late point against Fulham at the Emirates. Seemed to kind of dominate the game in the first half, by all accounts, but one mistake, conceded a pen, and then the game's turned on its head. Managed to rescue a late point through Nketiah, as I said. Mus, as a season ticket holder at Arsenal, or former season ticket holder, as he said, if you were in the stands yesterday, what would you have been screaming at the players? I mean, I know you're an Arsenal fan, so you probably would have been quite quiet throughout, but what would you have been saying to the person next to you?
I would have been saying, I think I've seen this one before. Just another infuriating home performance where Arsenal dominated the game, but don't seem to kind of get what they appear to deserve out of it. I think Fulham were fortunate to go 1-0 up. Not in the sense that the penalty wasn't deserving. I think probably there was some contact, but just Arsenal were unlucky not to get the first goal. There was that VAR really close call, and they had the better of it, but they're just overplaying at times. And then I think, to be honest, what was more concerning were the injuries. So with Aubameyang already in hospital with malaria, seeing Lacazette hobble off, potentially with a hamstring injury, I think that's going to be the bigger concern, because the league's a write-off, not just because of the ESL, but just because of the priorities for this season are now all going to be on the Europa League.
Yeah, Matt, you were saying like Liverpool, it's been a bit of a blip for them. What's Arsenal's excuse?
I think it's lack of mentality. I think there and potentially lack of leadership on the pitch. I mean, I don't watch Arsenal a lot. I only ever see the highlights, but I still think Arteta's still got. I would still back him because there's a vision there, and there's a method, and I think he's just being let down by a few on the pitch. And it's. I mean, Arsenal are a team with immense history, but they're going through, I think, what Liverpool went through back in probably 2010 onwards, probably before that as well. And it's heartbreaking to see your team 7th, 8th in the table when you know you've been having Champions League footballs and are decorated historically. So yeah.
Well, don't worry. Don't worry, Liverpool and Arsenal fans. We've qualified for the European Super League this season, so hopefully we're all good, and we're in the promised land, back where we belong. Let's move on to the next game, shall we? As we go in reverse chronological order. If you're watching this, by the way, get in the comments, share your opinions. We're going to be talking European Super League a bit later in the show, as well as all about Jose Mourinho's untimely or perhaps timely sacking at Spurs. Roz, I'm going to come straight to you on Wolves Sheffield United, the one that we all sort of predicted might be a bit of a snore draw. Let's have a look at our predictions. You put this one at 2-1 to Wolves. Me and Mus both said 1-0, so we're all around the same mark. How did the game play out? Willian Jose got his first goal.
Yeah, good for him. I mean, Wolves, I've said before, it's been a bit of a write-off this season since that Jimenez injury. I think we're seeing it at the top two with Liverpool, actually. You can go for sort of 2 or 3 years in a row, even the best sides. Actually, no matter what your level, sometimes you just need a season off, and particularly the way that Wolves play their pressing, high energy game, and it translates to Liverpool as well, I think. And then to lose your big striker, the fact that they've sort of ridden the wave whenever any real threat of relegation, I think they're just kind of trying to get to the end of the season. They lost Raul Jimenez, got in Willian Jose, and the lad from Porto, De Silva, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 strikers there that are sort of still probably trying to find their feet in the Prem. I think they'll go again next season. As for Sheffield United, I mean, you know, they were down months ago, weren't they? The side that was hit the worst by the pandemic, the results back that up. High flying, almost getting into Europe. They lost the fans. They lost that kind of Bramall Lane fortress. Hit badly financially by it as well. They've had issues like Lundstrom not signing a new contract and all this kind of stuff going on behind the scenes. So terrible season for Sheffield United, and wholly not their fault for me. Like I think pandemic hit a lot of clubs in different ways. For me, why the Chris Wilder sacking was totally nonsensical. Daniel Farke's promoted again, by the way. Daniel Farke's been killing it in the Championship this season. Straight back up again. I think they'll do a lot better this season, but why would you sack Chris Wilder? Stupid.
Yeah, I mean, it's concerning, actually, the Sheffield United situation, because you can sort of see that they've been that bad, and now with this kind of the new manager, they don't look too tidy still. Can you see them? Is it going to be a fight to stay in the Championship for them next season now they've been relegated?
Hopefully not. So I think what we're seeing in the Championship is that potentially the 3 teams that went down will come back up again, but Bournemouth being the one that's still in the balance. So I think the parachute payments still make a big difference, especially in the pandemic environment where, you know, other clubs that you're competing with don't have that, kind of locked in funds coming. So no, I think they'll need a bit of a break. They'll need some time off. If they can hold on to some of their key players, I can't see too many big clubs kind of swooping in and taking any of that squad. And with a few additions, I don't think they'll necessarily kind of do a Sunderland and go straight back down again.
A few of their players, if they hold on to them as well. I mean, Ryan Brewster really hasn't done it in the Premier League with them at all. Still a young kid from Liverpool when they spent big money on him. Absolutely killed it in the Championship when he was on loan with Swansea last season. I think a lot of the players will actually kind of find their level a bit better there. It's whether, you know, Daniel Heckingbottom or whoever they choose to get in is actually up to it, because if it was still Chris Wilder, I'd say they'd bounce straight back up. But I think that they've got so many players that they spend big money on that are just far too good for the Championship. But as Mus says, people probably won't sweep in for.
Yeah, cool. Okay, right. We'll move on then to Newcastle West Ham United, which proved to be a very entertaining game for the neutral. Couple of defensive howlers put Newcastle 2-0 up quickly. Dawson sent off as well in there to make it worse for West Ham. West Ham clawed it back to 2-2, only for Joe Willock to get the winner late on for Newcastle. And, you know, going into this game, it was 4th against 4th bottom. And now, you know, Newcastle up to 15th, looking quite safe on 35 points. West Ham, they've played a game more than Chelsea and Liverpool below them. They could find themselves 6th very easily by the end of this week. Matt, you know, are West Ham going to do it? Are they going to make a European place?
Not. as much as I would love to see that, it takes a position away from us, and we're in desperation. Although you see that, and Leicester are slipping down as well. So even if West Ham hang on to the form that they've done, and they've done amazingly well, I think they've done so well because the home fans aren't in the stadium booing them all the time. Rather, they've had the freedom to do what they want to do. But testament to David Moyes, and if he does if they do get Champions League spot, I think he's in the shout for manager of the year for sure for what he's done with that squad. But from a Liverpool perspective, it was good to see West Ham finally lose, because it was touch and go for a while. But then again, our fixture running is a nightmare as well. So we just focus on winning every game now. It's out of our hands.
Yeah.
They slip up again along with Leicester.
Was that no slip ups? Was that?
Yeah.
All right.
No. I wouldn't worry too much. I mean, if I was West Ham or Leicester fan, because if justice is served, then all you big boys will get strip points anyway. And it could be that West Ham finish 2nd, Liverpool finish perhaps lower than, but would be lower than Arsenal in like 9th. But actually, no, Arsenal. Well, you might get relegated, Joe. and Mus. Wouldn't that be good?
Well, look, my personal views will remain retracted from this podcast because I want to give you guys the limelight and your opinions. Mus, Newcastle safe now?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it was looking close when, with 10 minutes to go, Burnley were being dragged back into it, and with the United game to come, it looked like Fulham was still alive, and Newcastle and Burnley were still very much in it. But now I think that's it. It's all over.
Yeah, and Ros, just as Mus was saying, Brighton and Burnley now been dragged back into that relegation situation. Fulham are the ones that look most likely to go down between those and West Brom. West Brom, can they do it? Just as a quick side note.
Crazy, isn't it? The weeks kind of go by and it changes everything. I remember saying when Newcastle got that surprise win, so just last week against Burnley, I was absolutely shocked that Burnley didn't have more fight about them. They were playing like a side that was safe. The table now shows they are definitely not safe.
Yeah.
I think Fulham have the hardest fixtures for sure. They've got, I think, 3 or 4 of Europe's elite sides in that European Super League to play. So, but West Brom certainly are looking the most improved side. Fulham are playing good football, but they're just not getting the results. They're not getting enough goals for me to stay up.
Cool. Okay, right. We're going to move on then to the last game that we are looking at in this pod, and it's the tale of the Iceman and the Icelandic man. I've
already talked about Mason Greenwood, haven't I?
At Goodison Park, Everton hosted Spurs. It finished 2-2. Sigurdsson, the Icelandic man, getting 2, and Harry Kane, the Iceman, getting 2 as well. Bread is bread, cheese is cheese. Mourinho's gone. Mus,
Yeah.
tell me about this game.
Well, it was quite an exciting game. End to end. This is where all the games are going to start blurring into one now. But I think what I remember of it is that Michael Keane, it was just like Groundhog Day. Like it seemed to almost make the same mistake twice and just present Harry Kane with like a fairly well taken goal but an easy chance. And I think that was kind of telling that Everton created better chances for Harry Kane than any of his teammates. But Sigurdsson's second goal, that kind of half volley that he took as he was running into the edge of the area was real quality. And it's kind of like telling of both Everton and Tottenham season that they were just inconsistent, unable to see a result through, unable to hold on, and probably a result that doesn't do any favours for either side.
Yeah, Sigurdsson scoring against his former employers as well, obviously, for Everton. Matt, when you look across town from your side of Liverpool, I've noticed your Scouse accent very strong. When you look across town from Liverpool and you see the blue of Everton, do you worry about them? I mean,
No.
we're talking in the fantasy land of no European Super League. Are you worried about them in terms of European qualification?
No. I mean, like I remember they had a month-long party. Was it in October? When did the season start? September. When they won 4 on the trot and they were top 12 and we were on 10 points, and it was I know one Everton supporter, and they were given all the chat for so long, and then they slowly came down, and it's been the story as the boys were saying earlier. It's just that lack of consistency, and the fact that Keane gave away 2 goals. Like they could have won that game 2-0 and happy days. It's just but they've always had that. Calvert-Lewin has been poor up front recently as well after his immense start to the season. And Ancelotti coming in was such a steal. I think that was an amazing move, him going there, but also and obviously him bringing in Rodriguez as quality as well and getting the best out of Calvert-Lewin. But I don't see them coming anywhere near the level of Liverpool, not for a long time. They need some serious...
They'd need to be one of the 5 other sides in Europe that are allowed to qualify for the European Super League, which would be hard done.
They need to, the fact they're not included in that tells you everything you need to know. But yeah, they recruit in goal. Pickford, I think his time is done, and they need a better centre back pairing as well. I think Godfrey and Digne are good. I think their quality good, very, very good. They just need that. They need a strong number 1 and is better, stronger centre back. Midfield's okay. Striking force is phenomenal when it's on form.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, Matt. Cheers. Let's talk more about then Mourinho's sacking. Ros, I know you're a big fan of Jose. This morning it was announced, in the midst of everything else that was announced this morning, Sky Sports, I was watching Sky Sports News when it happened, and I was just like, he couldn't believe it. The presenter was kind of like, and we've got some breaking news for you now. Jose Mourinho has been sacked? What the hell has gone on there, Ros?
Well, I've heard three theories, right? The first one is that he massively blew off the handle this morning after the news of the European Super League emerged.
Why?
Refused to take his team out for training. I mean, either he's a nicer person than people give him credit for, and he really is a man of the people and thinks the fans do matter, or what we're getting out of certainly Thomas Tuchel earlier, it sounds like the managers weren't consulted on this, and I imagine Mourinho, his ego and not being consulted about such a huge thing might be a bit dodgy. The other thing is that's absolute.
I think that's more the point. Is Mourinho's ego wasn't massaged well enough into it. I don't agree with he having principles and being a man of the people. You know, this is a guy who's gone to. This is a guy that, well, I've seen the Amazon documentary. I know him that well, which, you know, how well. Yeah, but what I'm going to say, you know, where was he when, you know, he's walked into some of the biggest jobs with the biggest wads of cash over the years. You know, where was he being a man of the people when he started, when he signed for Chelsea with Roman Abramovich's endless pot of money, which arguably kicked all of this shit off in the first place. You know, where were his morals then?
I would call him a brilliant manager if you ask any of the people that he's managed. What he did when he took over Chelsea is he brought in the likes of Ricardo Carvalho and Paulo Ferreira, who'd worked with at Porto. If you ask the likes of Lampard, Terry, Drogba, Joe Cole, the kind of spine of that Chelsea side, they all still are on very good terms with him, text him all the time. I think often he's got a bit of that Alex Ferguson trait, which is to take the heat off something and do something very controversial yourself to take the heat off the players. Recently, he's kind of fallen out with, I wouldn't say big name players in the same way that someone like Pep Guardiola has. Pep tends to fall out with the Ibrahimoviches and the Yaya Toures. Jose tried to motivate Luke Shaw at Man United, didn't quite work out. Tries to motivate Dele Alli. Dele Alli was actually very good.
Tried to motivate Dele Alli. Are you joking? You've seen the documentary.
Do you see Jose's first few games at Tottenham? Dele Alli was superb, like out of this world.
That was the old Dele Alli, surely.
For about 5 or 6 games.
You watch the documentary. You see the first thing, he walks up to him, he singles him out in training, pushes him on the chest, and goes, "You're going to be trouble for me." How's that motivating one of England's brightest talents?
No. What he did, you're getting muddled up there, Joe. What he did was in the changing room, giving a chat. He said something along the lines of, "Dele, I've seen you train. You're fucking lazy." And he laughs like it's a joke. Like it's sort of, there's probably a bit of truth in it, but it's very much a sort of, I don't know. I watched that and saw it as something that was quite endearing. Anyway, regards to any of that,
I don't know. I'm not muddled up. That did happen. What I said did happen as well. I'm not muddled.
Sure, mate. My point was that I've written the Super League thing because I can't quite believe that just before a major trophy next week in a final that they've kicked him out this time. The other theory, which I think is ridiculous, is that Daniel Levy's worried that they're going to win. And then he's going to be one of those owners that sacks a manager after they've just won, like Chelsea do constantly. And he wants to get out of the club beforehand.
I don't know. Well,
which I don't buy at all.
I mean,
but there's no sense in it.
That relies on something that will never happen, and that's Spurs winning a trophy. We all know that's not going to. By the way, how are they considered to be in the elite 6 clubs in England? Leicester won the Premier League, 4 or 5 years ago. They've consistently been top 4, 5, 6. Spurs, they got 1 Champions League final in 10 years and 1 quarter-final or something. Look,
it's a bit like Arsenal, isn't it?
We'll get onto that. I mean, Arsenal have a slightly better claim, but again, it's dubious. But you know, as much as I don't know, Man United in the last 8 years, what have they really done? But let's let someone else speak. Mus, what do you make of the Mourinho situation?
Yeah, I think it was inevitable, to be honest. And from what I've heard and what I've read, it had nothing to do with the ESL, the European Super League. Apparently, it was all to do with underperformance and just the club hierarchy probably being opportunistic and burying bad news on a day like this when there's so much else going on. There's been some excellent reporting in The Athletic by Jack Pitt-Brooke, and just to pick out some of the key points in his article, he said the Tottenham players were left bored and untested by his training sessions. Most of the squad were expecting his sacking. Tactics were so obsessed with stopping opposition players that they were unsure how to attack. And it carries on. Apparently, only Harry Kane was loyal to him at the end, and he'd lost all allies at the club on and off the pitch. And I think it paints a picture, and it's not necessarily a new one. My own, and again, I'm going to just check that the EPL lawyers are. You're sure they're good, yeah? Because I'm going to say something controversial here, but I have this crazy theory that I think maybe around his time in Italy, but who knows, he ran into some trouble with the mob, right? Maybe I've been watching too much Ozark, but it just feels like this is someone who's deliberately getting high-paid jobs and then losing it through pushing the boundaries, criticizing players in public, making it kind of untenable for the owners to have to sack him. Gets a huge payout, right? I think when he tot up all his payouts, I think it amounts to 80 million. Pays off the debt, buys a bit of time, and then he goes again. It must be the only excuse, because it was almost like he's doing it deliberately now.
You reckon he's like a link to organised crime? Is he H? Is he H from Line of Duty? Is he the fourth man?
You're going to say H from Steps?
H from...
That would be a big twist.
Imagine.
It is a tragedy,
twist.
to be fair.
Very good. Yeah, Matt, let's come to you then. Anything to add on Mourinho? I think Liverpool's the only team he hasn't managed in the Elite Six, isn't he?
Yeah, nothing. Yeah, he doesn't like us at all. Yeah, I've got nothing as outrageous as the mafia claim, but I think it's his old management style. He could come in for 2 years, whatever, and rinse man management and out them and be really aggressive with them, and then they'd be really successful. You saw it at Chelsea, you saw it at Inter Milan. I think he went there next, or Real Madrid, and then you saw it at Real Madrid, where he blitzes them for 2 years, and then he falls out with them. Tottenham didn't have the level of players that you're coming in with Real or Inter Milan, you can argue. So there's only a matter of time before they start doing relatively well, and then they're going to slowly fall off. And I think Kane's going to go somewhere in the summer, whether United or City, most likely probably City. And Son is probably going to get snapped up by someone else as well. So there's probably that within the changing room. His performance in the league has been pretty dire the last 5 games. I think he's won 1 game the last 5. I would have kept him for the Carabao, whatever it was called now, the League Cup final, because it makes no sense in terms of bringing that in. I don't think it was necessary to do with the European Super League or his ego. I mean, I think he would have been annoyed about that competition forming, same way that Klopp and Pep, I think, will be very annoyed with it. I don't think it's necessary to do with him not being drawn, kind of pulled into conversation. It's more to do with the fact that it's not fair, but we can talk about that later on. But I think it's mainly based down to his league performance, because Spurs have been really poor. It's Kane's carrying him the rest of the way. And I think he got hurt anyway, injured. We'll see what happens with him.
Yeah.
I mean, they've now got Ryan Mason and Chris Powell leading him out in a cup final, which is hysterical. But just in terms of him falling out with players, I think players have changed rather than him. I don't remember him blitzing too many players at Chelsea or Inter. And also, if you look at I can't keep one later in his second stint at Chelsea with Cesc Fabregas, who served under both him and Pep. Says in terms of sort of man management and in terms of actually forming a relationship with the player, a manager asking how your family is, that kind of arm around the shoulder. Just look at all of his former players. They all would still, the ones that are successful with him, would all still run through brick walls for him. It's when he started getting this generation post Real Madrid of your Pogba type player when players started clocking on that actually I can play as badly as I want, and the manager's going to get sacked before I get released. So, I'm on all this money. I'm just going to take the piss with it. And that's what Mourinho doesn't get on with, for me. I think it's the type of football that has changed in the modern game. And they're all just players have too much power now, effectively.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, did you want to say something there? Sorry.
I can't think of the specific examples now, but particularly with Real Madrid, he fell out with the people behind the scenes.
The board, but they're all millionaire twats. I don't mind that.
I mean, the Pogba situation is a special one because the type of player Pogba is, I guess, is this kind of new type of modern football player where their price tag has gone to the head. But I didn't say I would have a specific reply to that. I guess I would say from an outside point of view, it's probably a bit of both. His man management has always been supposedly controversial. He's always out of players, but what he has done in the past, out of players publicly, and as I would say Klopp really, just comparing it to our manager, Klopp's never done that with a player. And gone, oh, they've done bad, or the team have looked bored, or the leaders on taking charge. I think he said that after the Everton game or the United game, where he said the leaders on the pitch were hiding. So he's obviously outing out Kane and Son and whatever. Well, I think someone else at half time. But I guess it's probably a balance of both. I would say.
Interesting.
It was always a risk bringing him in to Spurs. I think massive risk.
Yeah, big time.
I think it kind of bridged the gap a little bit for Levy, didn't it? Of trying to get them to become this bigger team by getting the stadium, having the money to employ Mourinho, getting rid of Mourinho. Maybe he's calculated that already. And I personally think that, given the timing of it, I think they've already. I think Levy's probably already got somebody lined up, but can't say anything at the moment because they're currently in a job. So my next question to all of you: who is the next Spurs manager? With that in mind.
Julian Nagelsmann.
Why would he choose? Presumably, he's going to go to Bayern Munich. Why would when Flick takes the Germany job? Because Flick's been very, very clear in his intentions to take that job. Nagelsmann is surely the natural replacement.
He would do it because Spurs are going to be in the European Super League and Bayern Munich aren't.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean,
I agree. I don't know why Nagelsmann would either go you'd go to a German club, I reckon, just to kind of keep it. He's a very sensible manager with the appointments he takes. I don't think Spurs are a sensible club to go to. They've got a history of bottling it.
This is the biggest bottle job in Spurs' history, isn't it? Sacking the manager a week before a cup final.
Getting Ryan Mason to take the helm.
Yeah. Hang on, maybe Levy's the one that's tied in with a mob, Mus. He's literally constantly making Spurs lose somehow at the last minute.
Spurs merchandise released keyring saying Carabao Cup finalists 2021. Not just finalists.
You hate to see it. There'll be a DVD.
I love it.
Yeah,
what about
DVD.
Allegri? They've been rumored with Max Allegri. He's been out of football for a while.
Yeah, he's waiting for a job, isn't he? Really clearly, what's it going to?
I was surprised he didn't go to Chelsea actually when they got too short.
And also surprised he didn't go to PSG.
Yeah. But he's been out of football for a while. So,
but if it was Allegri, they could announce him right away, couldn't they?
Sure.
They could say Ryan Mason's taking the team till the end of the season. And in the same sentence, they could say Ryan Mason's name and Max Allegri's name, and Ryan Mason could probably make some sort of artwork out of it for his house. But
well, it's the same as the Chris Wilder Sheffield thing. It doesn't work. But getting a manager out when you don't have someone lined up.
I don't think Sheffield United have Max Allegri lined up, mate. To be fair, but
maybe they've lined up Pep, and this week's going to get even madder. Pep's going to leave City midweek, take his first training session with Spurs on the Friday. Then he's going to win the cup for Spurs.
No way.
Mate, after the last 24 hours, anything can happen, right?
Anything can happen in the next half hour. Matt, any ideas for who the next Spurs manager might be?
I don't have any specific names, but it's got to be someone willing to not have a massive transfer budget and probably lack of control over transfers. It was amazing that Mourinho went in there with Levy's record of not spending big on transfers. You've also got to deal with the fact you're probably losing your best player in the summer. It's a job really I don't think many managers will want to take because of the squad that they have available and the lack of control, I would say, over transfers and just the team in general.
I think Mus might be about to make the same devil's advocate comment that I was about to make. Go on, Mus. What are you going to say?
Okay, no, I'm pretty sure this hasn't occurred to you, but I was just listening to Matt. They're saying, it's got to be a manager that is willing not to have any control on your transfer budget. And I was like, I thought he was going to say there can only be one man for it, and it's Tim Sherwood.
Oh, mate.
Return of the Gile.
I was actually going to say, I mean, this might sound outrageous, and that's my job, to pose outrageous questions to trigger you lot into saying something interesting. Wenger?
No, he'd never do that.
Imagine.
Do it out of spite because of the way Arsenal fans treated him as he left, but I don't think he's not going to win anything there, is he? I mean, imagine if he goes there and he wins the title. Oh, how great would that be?
So Matt spoke about sort of not really going to have a transfer budget over the next few years. Just to get back to Wenger, the people said after he left, who would take that job, right? It's a poison chalice, the Arsenal thing. You're taking off. You're the same as David Moyes at Man United, really. I think going well before that, 10 years prior, after they got the Emirates Stadium, it's never a good time to take over a club. It seems like it is because they've got this fancy new stadium and they're clearly a club on the up, but they're going to be paying it off for a while. And I reckon a lot of that Harry Kane money, assuming now he does leave because Ryan Mason ain't going to take them to top four, is he? Stupid. I don't get it at all. But yeah, like presumably a lot of that Harry Kane money will go back into the stadium and paying that off. They're not going to do like what they were able to do with the Gareth Bale money, which is squander it on the likes of Betty and Capoue and players like that.
Okay, look, we're going to park the Mourinho chat and move on to the, in inverted commas, European Super League. We've had a comment from Paul. He says the big kind of related thing here is that Klopp is massively opposed to the Super League. So could potentially leave. When we're after this chat about European Super League. Also, get in the comments, guys, if you're watching. Get in the comments and let us know what you think. We're talking about the big European Super League situation that has arisen in the last 24 hours and rocked football to its very core. Klopp, Matt, it's going to be interesting tonight, isn't it? Watching the Liverpool Leeds game and seeing he's going to be asked the question, isn't he, about the European Super League?
I'm sure he will be, and I'm sure he'll give a very, very diplomatic response saying, I don't know anything about it, but I wasn't consulted, all this kind of stuff. And I'm amazed that they haven't released any sort of like a big press release or a press conference or whatever to kind of control the news story. It's just spiraling out of control. And Klopp has been outspoken about this kind of European Super League thing before and was very against it and thought the Champions League was the Super League, and that's the competition that, if you're a professional football player, that's the one you want to get in and you want to win, particularly if you're wearing a Liverpool shirt, given the history of of us in European football. And it's strange that FSG decided to go well, not strange given where they've come from, but the fact that they backed Klopp for so long and brought in this new type of transfer method and backed young players and development and kind of investment in the brand and stuff like that, and about investment in the stadium and doing it in such a way that you didn't have to tear it down and you could still go to games and stuff like that. And there's always really clever management of the club, and then to do this but like go against everything that the club stands for. I imagine without consulting any of the club, without consulting any of the supporters groups in Liverpool. Not consulting Klopp, not consulting, not bringing in Henderson as captain, whatever. And it just feels like a massive stab in the back. And it's kind of goes against everything Liverpool stand for, and the same as Manchester United as well. And these two are the ones who are pushing for it the most out of the big six.
Well, I think Arsenal probably pushing for it quite hard as well. Having Stan Kroenke, American owner, his son's little side project, isn't it? Arsenal, Josh Kroenke, CEO of Arsenal, But they come from the American model, and they would have been pushing for it as well. Kroenke would have, maybe he's kept himself so distanced from Arsenal since he became majority shareholder that it wouldn't surprise me if this was the plan all along. To kind of American footballize European football, if you like, and take it to that model. And it is a massive slap in the face to the fans who these clubs wouldn't be as big as they are without the fans, the generations of fans over the last 100 plus years who have propped up these clubs and got them to where they are. It is a big slap in the face. But on the same side of that, I mean, you're guaranteed a great match every weekend, aren't you?
No, because none of the players will be there. They will leave because if it goes, I don't think it'll go ahead. I really don't think it'll go ahead. It will go into the courts, and who knows if it's a stunt to get more, to kind of push UEFA to change the Champions League format in terms of revenue and TV rights, whatever. But I don't think it'll go ahead. And the Klopp, if he's been so outspoken about it, it goes ahead. I think he might just leave. You'd be like, I'm sucking this off. And you think of Trent Henderson, who's going to play for England and want to play in the World Cup. That's got to be bigger than this at the moment. And I think you'll just be saying it's such a shame that they're taking it down this route.
Yeah.
But honestly, to me, I don't think it will go ahead. I think it'll go to the courts and it will be stopped.
Is that wishful thinking? Maybe I'm going to let someone else have their say on it. Mus, this has had political ramifications as well as just within the world of football. This is all over the news. It's not just on sports news channels. It's all over the news, full stop. Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, spoke this morning. Macron spoke in France yesterday. Why is there such a political kind of engagement on this?
Well, I mean, football's big business. It's seen as a big export product. It's one of the UK's biggest exports. It's part of the UK's soft power. It makes people more likely to want to do business with the UK, want to visit the UK. So it's not surprising. I mean, the weirdest take of all is, I don't know if you guys heard Ian Holloway on the radio.
Yes.
That was a bit weird. I think using the royal family to say that football clubs are kind of ruining the legacy of His Royal Highness Duke of Edinburgh by being selfish and protecting the interests of a small, wealthy elite.
He used to manage Millwall, and he was on Sky Sports once, and he was complaining about the offside rule and related that to Brexit. Somehow came out the offside rule going, give the people what they want, what they voted for. 52 votes. He's an absolute.
But I guess on the political level, they'll be worried about where the control and where the money will go. And that will be away from their countries, right? So they'll be all too aware that the domestic leagues will suffer. It will lose appeal. But also, from what I've read, the funding for this new project is coming from JP Morgan, a large American bank. You've already hinted at kind of the large American interest in this. The statement about the European Super League came out at 11:15 p.m. yesterday UK time, which is really inconvenient for a UK audience, but that's like 6:15 Boston time, where the Fenway Sports Group is based, so ideal timing for them. And it's not great at a political level, but also at a sporting level. And actually, just while we've been on air, apparently the Guardian have been able to extract an unpublished document from the European Sport League's website, which they say that such a document was so easily discovered by someone with little specialist knowledge of coding will be embarrassing to the European Super League. But apparently this document is meant to, and Matt was alluding to it, it's meant to justify why the European Super League is a good thing, and apparently it's going to help fans, and apparently there'll be 3 times the level of solidarity payments to smaller clubs than currently exist. But the final point I'd make is that they've just gone about it completely the wrong way. We all know they're greedy. We all know they want to make more money, and they think there's an endless pot of money to make. But they've just been so duplicitous. The fact that all these clubs and all these executives have been part of the European Club Association, including Agnelli, and particularly Andrea Agnelli. He was the president of the ECA, supposed to be representing, I think, 236 clubs across Europe. But all along, he's been out there to benefit a small subset. And apparently he's actually the godfather of Alexander Seferin, the UEFA president's youngest son.
Wow.
You'd think as an Italian he'd know not to go against the Godfather, just to continue the mafia theme. So yeah,
Love it.
I guess you'll be Seferin ties with that family.
Oh, mate.
Hey, I mean, they were, in terms of timing, it all feels a bit mafia because they were due to release the new format of the Champions League meeting today, weren't they? And they were, who was it that was saying earlier today? When UEFA have come down really like harshly on this and said this is an absolute disgrace, but outed people, specifically the Juventus man, Andrea Agnelli, and Ed Woodward as well. We said, I spoke to Ed Woodward on Thursday and he was well up for these plans.
Yeah.
So Ed Woodward on the phone was clearly going, yeah, I really like what you're doing there. I'm going to totally back you in that meeting. And then all along has been, it's an absolute scandal. It's sickening.
Yeah, it is pretty disgusting, isn't it? I mean, Twitter has been awash with all sorts of opinion. We've got lots of ex-players coming out saying stuff. Ander Herrera is an interesting one, which we read earlier. I'll just share it with you now. Ander Herrera said this at 11:30 this morning. I fell in love with popular football, with the football of the fans, with the dream of seeing the team of my heart compete against the greatest. If this European Super League advances, those dreams are over. The illusions of the fans, of the teams that are not giants, of being able to win on the field, competing in the best competitions will end. I love football and I cannot remain silent about this. I believe in an improved Champions League, but not in the rich stealing what the people created, which is nothing other than the most beautiful sport on the planet. Now, you have to excuse the Google translation of that. Is obviously a little bit foggy, but you get the gist of it. You know, yeah. Ros, have you heard, what any other sort of players have been saying, or ex-players, or pundits, managers?
Yeah, I mean, I think most people have probably by now seen the Gary Neville rant where he, I think, spoke for pretty much every fan in the country. Totally came down with it. Absolutely sickened. There's a lot. I mean, there's a few things with sort of Man United players doing that, which is that, of course, they pulled out of the FA Cup 1 year to take part in the Club World Cup, and there's a little bit of hypocrisy there. Rio Ferdinand as well come out very disgusted. Again, slight hypocrisy from him because he's been a massive threat to Newcastle fans recently and backed his best mate, the millionaire Mike Ashley. But aside from that, I've yet to find a player that said a good thing about it. On TV, those pundits, the BT ones and the Sky ones, are all in absolute uproar, which makes you kind of think of the players that are playing currently. There's been talk of, I mean, we sort of mentioned the likes of Jordan Henderson and Trent playing for Liverpool and England. There's been talk of them saying that you can't play in our competitions, you can't play in the FIFA World Cup, you can't play in the UEFA Champions League. If there's one thing you think of with Liverpool Football Club, it's the fans. You'll never walk alone on a European night. Even that anthem itself, you'll never walk alone. It's in a club of the people and all that.
Yeah.
And you think of how many European clubs they've won. Now, there's no way that they're going to be able to take part in this stupid American competition they've just invented, and the Champions League, because it's going to be midweek games, which means that Liverpool and AC Milan, who've won 7, and all these kind of big clubs that are there because they're big clubs, will just get rid of that history. They will probably never win the Champions League again, which is synonymous with
I want to hold you there on the point of fans, and particularly Liverpool fans. Matt, I mean, you must have seen today the stuff that's happening outside Anfield and the statements coming from Liverpool supporters groups, removing their flags and banners and stuff from the stadium, gathering outside Anfield. I mean, we know they like to party in lockdown up in Liverpool, but is it just an excuse for a party, or are they fuming, and why?
Very passionate fans. They live and breathe at Liverpool, and it's part of the city, part of the culture about that. And it is the people's club. And I saw the banners go up today. RIP 1872 to what was it? To 2021. And I think that's probably a bit dramatic, but it's so unlike what Liverpool is about, from when Shankly built it up to then Paisley taking it over, and this heritage of being the people's club and dominating European football. That's all it's the biggest, to us, the biggest trophy. Yes, the Premier League is obviously massive. We finally got that. But if you were to say to me, you'd win 5 Premier League trophies in a row or 5 European Championships in a row, I'd always say the European Cup, because to me, that is you as being best in the world or Europe. Man City haven't done that yet under Guardiola. We'll see if they do it this season. But to me, they're good, but that's not at the level of Klopp's Liverpool, because they haven't won the European trophy.
It's
the idea of this was to obviously replace the Champions League, which is why they're arguing, you can still play domestically because you'll play with us, but you just won't play in the Champions League. Slightly off point. I think it's a bit hypocritical. UEFA and FIFA have come out saying it's slightly corrupt, whatever, when they've both been severely implicated for corruption.
Yeah.
The UEFA president has been handed an 8-year ban. Same with Sepp Blatter as well. So we're having a World Cup in Qatar, known for not having any football stadiums or anything like that. So it's a bit hazy, and there's obviously arguing over TV rights, and there's a potential loss of revenue for that. But you can understand why they want to protect that. Same with the Premier League as well. All this money that the big, our big six bring to it in terms of TV revenue, that could all be gone, and you've got and even fill up with the Championship teams. But
I mean,
the feeling is that everyone's upset. I follow a few forums on Reddit as well, and they are rinsing Liverpool. Well, say Liverpool, let's be careful. It's FSG, not the club, for this decision, because it's so against what they all stand for, and it's just a shame.
They're taking these institutions and kind of franchising them, aren't they? And
yeah,
Paul shared a quote in the comments. He's saying, wasn't the quote, "They don't care about the legacy fans, but are making it better for the fans of tomorrow." So basically, fuck history. This is about making money in the future.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes down to is obviously the financial uncertainty of the future, and with the pandemic, it's proven how fragile club finances are, how much they rely on, grassroots football, how much they rely on the money from the English football pyramid and fans not being able to go and all this. It wasn't a long time ago. Liverpool were trying to put their staff on furlough, same with Tottenham, and then the fans hit back massively, and then they stopped doing that.
Football. Mus, I'm just going to come to Mus quickly. Mus, football's a meritocracy, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it hasn't been for a while, you could argue, with all the money that's been poured into the biggest clubs and the skewed playing field that provides. You can argue that actually for a long time, the English game's kind of not really been a meritocracy. But
so since when? Since when has it not been a meritocracy?
Well, you could date it back from when the Premier League was first created in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Or you could kind of say actually all went wrong when Abramovich came in. It depends on your perspective, but I think I take your point that the guiding principle of every single sporting event is sporting merit, right? It's a competition, and whoever's best on the day stands a chance of winning. Whereas what they've done here with the proposals for this tournament is go with marketing merit. The biggest brands get to just face off in this tournament forever. But then what are the incentives? There's no promotion, there's no relegation. So it's not about who's best on the... It's just about who's the biggest name, who's going to sell most shirts, most TV rights. And I'm not sure how that's going to be for the fans of the future. I'm not sure how, after a while, that's going to be appealing. Surely there's a reason why the World Cup, the biggest tournament in the world, the most exciting event in the world, is every 4 years, because the scarcity of something makes it special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the competition element, I think we mentioned parachute payments earlier with the likes of Sheffield United. There's not much I hate more than parachute payments. I think it's absolutely disgraceful that a club that can't manage their own finances are being protected by the league, so they don't get 3 or 4 relegations in a row. But the thing about parachute payments, and you could say that the Premier League's been getting more money driven the whole time since Sky came in and got exclusive TV rights. Since the FA Cup's no longer been on the BBC every single game, since the Champions League hasn't been on ITV, and BT have sort of scrambled that up. It's been going this way for a very long time, but you've never lost that competition. And in terms of the parachute payments down from the Premier League, you get 3 Premier League places up for grabs every season. Those 3 places aren't always They usually are, but they're not always occupied by the parachute payment teams. Brentford are always there or thereabouts, having never had them in their history. You can also get relegated on parachute payments. We're looking at Sunderland now wandering down in League One. We're looking at the likes of Hull that were relegated last season from the Championship that have had, I think, 2 parachute payments in the last few years. So it's not impossible to kind of break these competition barriers. It's also not impossible for a small club like Millwall to get to an FA Cup final in 2004, to lose said final against one of the European elite, Manchester United, but then to get European football the next season because of losing that final, or Birmingham City to get to the League Cup final and not get European football. Sorry, to get European football based on that. That's where the money is, right? The money is in European football and in the Premier League. We're now talking about what's going to replace European football, and what's going to replace all the money, all the sponsorships that are going to the Premier League will not trickle down because they will all jump ship to this big now European kind of superpower. So the Premier League won't get as much money, which means it will trickle down to clubs like Millwall, clubs like Birmingham City a lot less, which means that for now, instead of 3 big money opportunities to get into the Premier League, instead of 2 big money opportunities to get into Europe in the cup competitions, because that's not actually going to be a thing anymore, you've got 5 places across the whole of fucking Europe. The whole of Europe. What does that mean for Celtic? Celtic, by the way, the first British side to actually win the Champions League. Okay? So back in the 60s, Rangers have been in a European Cup final. I doubt those 5 places will go, oh, well, we should certainly give it to the Scottish teams. They're clearly a bigger side than fucking RB Leipzig, who are being rumoured, right? RB Leipzig, who are 11 years old and who have never won a trophy. Never won a trophy. They're 11 years old. But because they've got a bigger stadium, because they've got more investment, because they've got bigger backers, because they've got Julian fucking Nagelsmann and they're a massive, like, European superpower, apparently, having never won a trophy. Fucking Spurs. Arsenal, what have they done? It's an absolute disgrace. I'm a bit angry. The show.
I mean, it's interesting to hear the effects of how it's affecting sort of the if you like the rest of the football pyramid. Just got a little bit of breaking news for you, actually. I've just seen on Twitter that
they heard me and they finally admitted Millwall in part of
12. A banner has just been flown over Elland Road ahead of tonight's game, Leeds Liverpool, and it says "Say no to Super League." So
powerful stuff.
Yeah, is that Liverpool? Liverpool fans are pretty mobile, aren't they? They're pretty quick to mobilise, and I'm pretty sure that will be a Liverpool fan, not a Leeds fans. Done that. Okay. Talking of Liverpool Leeds, it's nearly 7 o'clock. We've been here just under an hour. Should we park the Super League chat? Maybe we'll look to do a special on it in the next week or so. Let the dust settle. Let's see what happens in the next few days. See if the power grab actually happens from the big boys, the big billionaire bad boys. Let's try and focus on what remains of the Premier League as we know it. There's only a few games left, presumably. And this week's fixtures, we've got a few left. But tonight, it's Leeds against Liverpool at Elland Road. Now, Mus and Roz, we made our predictions for this game on Saturday. Roz, you said 4-3 to Liverpool. Mus, you said 3-2 to Liverpool. I said 3-2 to Leeds. Yep, there's Matt's face. Says it all, the reaction there. Matt.
Oh, mate, goals to Liverpool. We can't score any goals.
What's your prediction, Matt?
It's got just 1-1, 2-2, maybe written all over it. We knew we have to win. We have to win every game now. It's got to be a cup final. Like, forget all the nonsense. We just have to win every game. It's out of our hands. As long as we win every game and we don't get in, then we're fine. Whatever. Write it off and start again. But for this game, it's 2 teams who love to attack, and I reckon it'd be very free-flowing, open football. Could be a question of who scores first, and then could be 4-3. But considering Liverpool's previous performances and the lack of goals they're getting up front, I'll be biased and go 2-1 Liverpool.
Fair. Okay, some more banners coming out at Elland Road. Behind one of the goals, there's a banner now that says "Earn it on the pitch. Football is for the fans."
Yes.
Some early team news for you as well. Rafinha and Rodrigo are both doubts, but will undergo late fitness tests. We should get teams very soon. They're without captain Liam Cooper, who is suspended due to the red card he received in the victory over Man City. Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp is boosted by the news that he has no new injury concerns to contend with. So just Joe Gomez, Jordan Henderson, Joel Matip, and Virgil van Dijk remaining on the sidelines. Okay, so how do we see it playing out, lads? Any quick points you want to make before we succumb to Monday Night Football and let them sort of take over our build up? We've set them up nicely.
It's not at Anfield, so I think Matt could be a bit more hopeful. You know, if it was at Anfield, I'd say, you know, the away advantage for Leeds United when it's playing at Anfield. But no, Liverpool surely have too much for them. Leeds are one of the only sides that defend or have defended worse than Liverpool this season. So you've got Mo Salah, Diego Jota looks good when he plays, I think. So it's got Liverpool for me, written all over it.
Yeah, Mus.
Yeah, I mean, I need this for my fantasy league, which obviously matters more than anything else. So yeah, good luck, Liverpool.
Oh my God, can you imagine if they bring out a fantasy European Super League? That would be tough call,
Yeah.
wouldn't it? Every week, like, yeah. I mean, maybe they'd up the budget from 100 million to 100 billion or something. Who knows? But anyway, lads, it's been a pleasure having you along today. Thank you very much for joining us, Liverpool fan Matt. Stay there. I need to talk to you about something. Roz, you stay there as well. Mus, you stay there as well. Thank you guys for being a part of it. I've had this idea for a new podcast, and what we're going to do is we're going to merge with some other podcasts in Europe, and we're going to put together this this big kind of European super podcast. Okay, so stick around. We're going to have a little chat about it. Trust me, you'll love it. It's going to be great. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time on EPLW. Cheers. Bye.